This is Gabriela on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. We have a real treat for you just around the corner, and that is Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. Jeff is the owner of Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and he will be coming to you weekly to teach you more about empowered living. Now, let's join Jeff already in the studio.
Hello and welcome. This is Jeff Byrd with Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and this is Empowered Living. Now, today we have a program that I'm very excited about, and we're actually going to have a little exercise for you to do. The title of today's broadcast is, Are You Affected or Effective? And those words sound the same, but there's a lot of difference in them. And I remember when I was a child, some really good things about my dad. Now, he's been gone since 1990, but his influence is far from being gone. And one of the things that still has the greatest influence on me today is his self-leadership. Because unlike many, many people in our world today, he realized that it wasn't so much what happened to him, but his response to it that made all the difference in his life and the lives of those around him. In fact, he had a little book that my mom still has by J. Allen Peterson, and the title of it was Your Reactions Are Showing. And he got that book and he read it again and again, and I can remember him referring to it many times because he realized that, his responsibility wasn't to control the world around him and everybody else around him so it could be just like he wanted and to complain about it when it wasn't like he wanted. He realized that his only responsibility was in his reactions, what he was putting out there, his actions and his reactions. That was the sole sphere of his responsibility. And that's the way it is with all of us. There's so many things in the world we can't control. There's so many things we may not like, but what we can control is our response to it. Chuck Swindoll once said, I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. Now, isn't that true? The truth. Your reaction to circumstances and things around you can put you in the White House or it can put you in the big house. It's up to you. But it's like Robert Louis Stevenson said, sooner or later, everyone sits down to a banquet of consequences. And those consequences are all based on what we do. So I doubt that anyone would argue that it's far easier to focus on what's happening to us, whether we like it or not, and who and what we wish we would change than to look at the way we're responding and work on changing ourselves. I was with a large group of seniors recently, and my first meeting with them, I asked them, I said, how many people would like to see change in the world? And every hand in the room went up. And then I asked them to put their hands down, and I said, okay, I want you to get a real clear picture in your mind of what change you would most like to see in the world around you. I said, everybody got it? They all said they did. They nodded. I said, now, how many people were thinking about yourself? Put your hands up. Not one hand went up. Everybody wanted to see everybody else change, but nobody was thinking about changing themselves. Yet, all of the results that we get in life are based on what we do and the changes that we've been willing to make in ourselves. Yet we rarely think about that. So for those who invest the time, the thought, the reflection, the effort that it takes, great rewards await for us in the areas of relationships, influence, our careers, our finances, and just like I told you about my dad, the legacy that we leave behind to those generations who are going to come after us. So here's the exercise. This is I'm going to give you some pairs of things to help you think through and determine, are you more affected or are you more effective? So here we go. Affected people focus on what has happened to them. Effective people focus on how they respond to what has happened to them. Affected people focus on who and what they want to change. Effective people focus on how they can change. Affected people seek ways to change circumstances. Effective people seek resources to better themselves. Affected people focus on immediate happiness for themselves. Effective people focus on the long-term benefit for everyone involved. Affected people focus on receiving. Effective people focus on becoming. Affected people are concerned with how they are treated by others. Effective people are concerned with how they are treating others. Affected people create secondary issues by the way they respond. Effective people resolve the primary issue of their attitude. Affected people view difficulties as a hindrance to comfort. Effective people view difficulties as an opportunity for growth. Affected people focus on their wants and needs, and effective people focus on the needs of others. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think about that list that I created, that's a little convicting because it shows me, and this is a tool. This is not to condemn ourselves or judge ourselves. This is a tool to reveal ourselves to us so that we can see areas that we can work on growing in and improving in. We'll all likely realize that we are very, very often on that side of being affected. And if you're like me, I'm there a lot more than I would like to admit. It comes quite naturally, whereas becoming effective takes effort and intentionality. As one man very, very truthfully said, I got to the top the hard way, fighting my own laziness and ignorance every step of the way. And boy, isn't that the truth? If it came easy, if good growth and development and results and success came easy, everybody would be doing it. But like it's been said, everything worth doing is uphill all the way. So we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to give a few suggestions that can help us in our transition from being affected to being effective.
Jeff will be back shortly to wrap up today's message. This is Gabriela, still on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. If you've missed any part of today's message, you can hear it again online, as well as the entire archive of Empowered Living at www.talknetworkradio.com or search keyword #Empowered Living. We would like to acknowledge our music partners, Sound Ideas for Corporate to the Max, and Kevin MacLeod for Airport Lounge. Any scriptures read during this broadcast are from the New American Standard Version of the Holy Bible. If you would like to learn more about Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, visit www.jeffbyrdcoaching.com. That is JEFFBYRD coaching.com. Do a Facebook search for @CoachingRocks or drop Jeff a line at jeff@jeffbyrdcoaching.com. Again, JEFFBYRD coaching.com. Let Jeff's Coaching Rocks be the building blocks of your empowered success. Now, let's go back to Jeff for the rest of today's message.
Okay, welcome back. So today we're exploring the topic of whether or not we are more affected or more effective. And here's a few suggestions that can help us move from just being affected by our circumstances to being effected. And, what we want to do, our real goal is to become like what Paul talked about in the book of Romans. And he said, who will separate us from the love of Christ? Will tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? No, in all these things we overwhelmingly conquer through him who loved us. So he gives a pretty severe list. Most of us haven't been through this kind of tribulation and persecution and peril and sword. These are extremes more than a lot of us will ever recognize, at least in the Western world. And I realize there are people listening to this in places that aren't in the Western world, and these things are actual realities for you. But regardless of what is coming at us from the outside, Paul promises us that it is possible to overwhelmingly conquer in the midst of all of these things. And he tells us it's going to be through God's love for us in Christ and him doing through us what we can't do ourselves. So here's a few things that are going to help us become those overwhelming conquerors that Paul mentions. First of all, what we want to do is take time to reflect. We'll never grow if we don't take the time to reflect and see where we really are. Regular reflection on the things that are occurring and our reaction to them can provide us valuable insight into our triggers and how we can manage our responses during the times when we are most susceptible to being affected. We can also learn much from reflecting on how our reactions and attitudes are affecting others and the messages we are communicating to them. Now, I can't even share that with you without thinking of sometimes that I know that I'm impatient with my wife. And I know it's painful to look at that and see the impact that it has on her, the messages that I'm conveying to her. But here's the good news is when I take the time to reflect on those times, I don't have to get bogged down and get discouraged and in despair because I have them. What I can do is go, okay, wait a minute. When this happens, this is how I tend to react. Now, let me hold myself accountable for a better reaction the next time that happens. Let me recognize, hey, this is that time again that I'm going to be tempted to be impatient. Now let me call myself up short, call myself to account, and do better than that. Let me recognize, hey, I'm going to count for a few extra minutes in this situation. The next way that we can develop in becoming effective is by gaining insight from others. Feedback from friends and family in a safe and encouraging environment can work wonders toward helping us grow towards becoming more effective and less affected. The great thing is that we can all grow together because we all need help in this area. We can keep in mind, though, that many people do not like to give what they may perceive as negative feedback to your face. Okay? It's difficult to tell other people the areas that you think they come up short in a healthy and constructive environment. Now, we may talk about them to our coworkers in the parking lot, but talking about them in a healthy way to their face in a way that can help them grow. That's much more difficult. But one of the things we can do is to prime the pump by bringing up an area that we want to grow in. In other words, don't let them have to bring it up first. Let's us bring it up first and then ask them for further insights and feedback that they may have to give us to help us move forward. Say, hey, listen, I realize this is a weak area. I really want to grow in it. What do you see there? What are your thoughts? How might I grow in this area? Or maybe how have you grown in this area? So getting insight from others will help us grow. The next one, the third one is akin to that one, and this is learning from others who are more mature. Often acknowledging a good quality in another and asking for their insight can open the doors to gaining valuable perspective to help in our own journey. Most often when we go to people in that way and say, hey, I noticed you're really good at this, can I just ask you a little bit more about that? Or how did you get so good? Most of the time they are very willing to share their experiences and their learning journey. And, it's been said that a wise man learns from his mistakes. A wiser man learns from other people's mistakes, but the wisest man learns from other people's successes. So let's go to those people who we see being successful and recognize that and acknowledge it and ask for their insights into that success. Fourth, is learning from good role models, filling our minds and hearts with the stories, the struggles, and the triumphs of those who have grown and overcome the difficulties of adversity. Those stories can inspire us to remember that all our choices, even the little ones, have a lasting impact and that we, too, are making a difference every day when we choose the right responses and choose to be effective. Okay, the last one is lifelong learning, making daily growth, not our goals. If you're like me, when you set a goal, it's like you knock yourself out to reach the goal, and then you relax and forget about it. No, we don't want goals. We want lifelong learning and development. So when we make that daily growth our priority, it sets us up each day to find ways to become better than we were yesterday. Over time, this adds up and pays big dividends, like saving a little money each day. And we keep in mind, too, just like Paul said there in that Romans passage, that there is no circumstance of life that we cannot overwhelmingly conquer in through what God's given us and through our intentionality and the help of other people. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Jeff Byrd with Jeffrey Byrd Coaching. This is Empowered Living. Hope you're having a great day.